Hello, my name is Rob Bittick, and I'm a professor at Sam Houston State University. That's in Huntsville, Texas, just north of Houston. I'm here today to talk about ethical decision making. Prior to my career in higher education, I worked for the U.S. Federal Civil Service, for the U.S. Air Force, in acquisition and procurement. Now, when we're talking about defense budgets, you can understand ethics is very important. We used to have a standard that went something like this. If an act is legal and yet has the appearance of impropriety, we cannot engage in that act. So notice the act could be legal. For example, I might be at my desk at lunchtime. I might be playing a video game like solitaire. It doesn't cost anything to the government. But if my desk was in, say, a public hall where people might be walking by, the general public, that might give the impression that I'm wasting government time and misusing government equipment. So I would not be able to engage in that act, even though it technically would be legal. This shows the high calling of public trust that we're to uphold, this standard. So, what about those gray areas? Those areas where either law or policy is unclear or absent, or maybe even questionable, yet I still have to make a decision. Well, there's 4 brief steps a public administrator can go through to determine whether they should engage in a particular act. These come from the moral philosophies that have been handed down to us. So number 1, character and virtue. This comes from the philosopher Aristotle. First of all, what is the public goal? What is the goal, the public service goal that you are to reach? Would the act be a deficiency? That is, would it be not achieve the goal? Or would the act be excessive? What are the habits you need to engage in to achieve that public goal? How would this act conform to that? Number 2, this one's real easy, consequences. This comes from the utilitarian philosophers such as Jeremy Bentham and John Stuart Mill. Here you'd ask, does this act produce the greatest good for the greatest number of people? Now, you would want to make sure that minority rights are protected in this. This is very common. Cost-benefit analysis is the kind of tool we often use here. But decision makers don't always have time to engage in such a study. But you could quickly go through mentally whether this act would achieve the greatest good for the greatest number of people. Number 3, principles. This comes from the deontological philosophers like Immanuel Kant. Here we're looking at principles where we would not want to engage in an act even if it resulted in the greatest good, if it violated some moral principle. Immanuel Kant would say, if I engage in this act, could I will it to be a universal law? And in applying this to people, he would ask, always treat people as an end in themselves, not merely using them as a means to an end. Finally, we come to 4th, and this is like a gut check, something that's always good to do whenever we're making a decision. It's the moral conscience. Is there something about this act that would bother me? Now, in this, it's not an emotion that we're looking at so much as it is a moral sense. Because my emotions may tell me to do something bad. I might be mad at somebody. But my moral sense would say, don't engage in this act. Now, these 4 steps won't guarantee an ethical decision, but it does help a person make an intelligent, thoughtful decision, one that could be justified if a public administrator was being held accountable to a decision. So, once again, but ethical decision making on the job can be sometimes very difficult, especially in those gray areas. So I hope these 4 principles can help you be a better decision maker. Thank you.